A single mom who works 2 jobs, who loves her kids but never stops. I just had to show off my shirt because no one knows this, but I wear themed shirts for every video I make. But when I was setting up my studio, I did not for once consider like, hey, no one can see the shirt I'm wearing. So now I just wear them for me. So listen. Hi everyone, it's Chase, aka That Gay Jedi. So nice to see you. If you're new here, welcome to my channel. Listen, I make videos, fun, dumb, gay little videos about Marvel, about Stranger Things, and about Star Wars. So if that sounds interesting to you, go ahead and click subscribe. Today we're talking about a very hot topic, a very punchy, headliney thing, which is Will Byers' sexuality from Stranger Things. Listen, the situation is that they've sort of been hinting at Will's sexuality, Will being gay, if you will, from the very beginning of the show. And in season 4, it kind of came to a head. It was arguably, honestly, one of his only dramatic journeys through season 4 is his sort of perceived queerness and his struggles with his sexuality. At least to me, that really felt like the whole angle with Will. So first of all, would have loved a little bit more with Will. But that's kind of the situation, is a lot of people are accusing Stranger Things of queer baiting. A lot of people are upset with the non-explicitness of Will's gayness in Stranger Things. So the question is Stranger Things queer baiting? And to that I have to say, no, they're not. In my opinion, they're not. Thank you all so much for watching and I'm kidding. Yeah, no. I do have actual points to make and I have thoughts to share. I have points to make and I have thoughts to share. But first, a couple disclaimers. First of all, one of the biggest disclaimers, I'm so tired of talking about this, right? I'm just tired of talking about this, but I kind of had to share some thoughts because I do find there's a lot of interesting moving parts of this equation, of the whole is Stranger Things queer baiting equation. So I'm grateful to be talking about it with you all. This is not a scripted video though. So I'm just kind of if you see me look here though, I do have notes. So I do have notes prepared, but this is not scripted. So I'll probably forget things. I'll probably misspeak on things, but y'all let me know down in the comments because I really do want to talk about this. I want it to be a conversation. Another disclaimer is I'm kind of the way I hold this whole situation is I am assuming that we will get more explicit queerness with Will in season 5, whether that's a coming out scene or whether it's just him having a boyfriend after the time jump, or whatever it is, or maybe it's him just I don't know, whatever it is. I think I'm kind of coming at this from the angle, assuming that we are going to get that because the Duffer Brothers have never let me down as a fan, they already, we'll talk about it later. But the point is, that's my angle. That's where I'm coming from. And the last disclaimer is that obviously representation is very, very important. I am not going to sit here and claim that representation of all kinds is not important. It is obviously important. And when it comes to queer representation, the representation of coming out scenes and having coming out scenes in media, on TV and in movies, that's a very important thing too. Young people need, or people in the closet, I guess, in general, need to be able to see that coming out process and feel empowered by it. But that being said, not everyone comes out of the closet, and also people come out of the closet in different ways. So I think there's also power in having queer stories where people don't come out of the closet, or maybe come out of the closet in ways that you might not expect, or in ways that aren't as conventional or aren't as explicit. So yes, obviously representation, very, very important. Those disclaimers aside, I thought it would be it would be nice to start with just a definition of what queer baiting is. So I took this definition from Wikipedia, and it says, queer baiting is a marketing technique for fiction and entertainment in which creators hint at but then do not actually depict same-sex romance or other LGBTQ representation. They do so to attract or bait a queer or straight ally audience with the suggestion of relationships or characters that appeal to them, while at the same time attempting to avoid alienating other consumers. So right off the bat, once we take time to actually think about what queer baiting means, instead of just using it as internet clickbait, because the internet just devoids anything of any meaning. Stranger Things does not do this. Stranger Things is not trying to capture a gay crowd. They're not trying to bait queer people to come watch the show, or queer allies to come watch the show because there's a gay person that might be gay. They already have a gay character, first of all, and they also have the gay character's love interest, who's heavily implied that she's also closeted. So they're not really doing that, and I also don't think that they're trying to by the same hand, I don't think that they're trying to sort of like, you know, not step on homophobes' toes. You know what I mean? Which, by the way, let's normalize stepping on homophobes' toes. But they're not trying to censor themselves or like keep it like gay free. Like, again, there's already a gay character who's like very out, and actually, in my opinion, had really beautiful representation and beautiful displays of queerness in season 4 with Robin. So yeah, like, they're not queerbaiting. Not in my opinion, at least. But let's just start talking about like the show itself, and then I kind of want to get into like fan interactions with all of this. You know, the way I approach Will's sexuality in season 4 is the same way I've approached it through the whole show, and that he is from the very beginning implied to be gay, and I love that. I love that for me. I love that for my queer siblings, because Will has always been like a little baby gay brother to me, and I love him and I will protect him at all costs. But yeah, like, it feels like Will's sexuality has been planned from the very beginning, which I also take confidence in for season 5. Like, if it's been planned from the beginning, then like I would assume it has payoff through all the seasons. Like, they hint at it every season, with Joyce calling his son, like saying his son was bullied for being sensitive or being queer, like, and like Mike's line about him not liking girls, which is like not a very nice line and also is open to interpretation. The point is like, it does feel like it's been planned from the beginning. Another thing too is like I mentioned earlier with Robin, like, I feel like the Duffer Brothers have done a great job with queerness in the show and the handling of gay characters. It's not like Robin. I was really worried when Robin came out in season 3 that it was like, okay, she came out and like that's it. But she got to play in that in season 4, and she got to have like more of an arc with her queerness. And arguably, Will also has had a bit of an arc with his queerness. We see him sort of like, I feel like in season 4, his queerness is really bubbling under the surface to the point where like he has to acknowledge it. And maybe honestly, maybe that's what this whole thing is. Maybe all of us are just so empathetic. Maybe we're all empaths and we're watching Will and we're like, we see it bubbling under him and now it's bubbling under us, and now we just want him to be able to come out with it, which slay. I love that take. It's a very sweet take. But the show's been doing a great job with queerness so far, in my opinion. So I feel like I can trust that moving forward. Another thing is like, again, representation is very important. And one form of representation that I think isn't necessarily explored is like queerness that is closeted queerness. Like, every Pride season, I try to remind myself that like, I have a lot of privileges that allow me to be out. Like, being out is a privilege, and not everyone has that privilege. And I don't know. I mean, I think that they do a good job of, to me, it's very clear. Like, he's very clearly gay. Like, I don't think there's really a question about it. Like, I think when people ask the actors and the showrunners about this in interviews, they're just kind of like trying to like get headlines or something. But to me, he's very explicitly gay. And so it's more like, if his journey is a little bit more of a closeted journey, like, I think that there should be sort of room for that. The other thing too that I think is really important for all of us to remember is like, the big bad here isn't like the Duffer Brothers. The big bad here isn't Stranger Things. The big bad is like society. Like, we just, because we're so representation starved, I think we get really uppity and very like on edge about any like non-explicit queerness. But in an ideal world, if we had like a lot of LGBTQ representation, a more closeted queer experience would be probably honestly praised. Like, people would probably live for that, because again, it's a lot of people's realities. So that kind of representation matters. Another thing too that I wanted to read really quick is my friend Ian Carlos wrote a really wonderful piece on queerness and Stranger Things that I will link below. So read it. But he writes in the article, but with Robin and Will, we have two queer characters on two different journeys, which is something I genuinely appreciate. If we didn't have Robin, then I'd for sure be in the camp that thinks Will needs to be explicit about his coming out. But I enjoyed having different queer stories, having one where the character is a little more reserved, a little unsure about their queerness. Like, literally, yes, exactly. I love you, Ian, and slay. Everyone go read that article. Also, within the world of Stranger Things, like, I feel like he did sort of have a coming out scene. I really felt like that scene with Will and Jonathan in the Surfer Boy Pizza, like, a lot of people kind of come at that and call it lazy writing, but I actually think it's genius writing, because I have had that conversation with my older brother where it was like kind of when I was a little bit unsure of myself and I was around 17 years old and I just didn't really know what was going on. And my brother was like, hey, like, no matter who you are, what you're doing, like, whatever, like, I love you and I'm here for you. So not only did that scene emotionally destroy me, it also sort of like gave me a really weird validation where I'm like, oh my God, like, me too. Like, so I think that to me felt like a coming out scene. Like, that's how it felt like to me, because in my life, that felt like me coming out to my brother without actually coming out to my brother. Because guess what? I never did. I never sat him down and was like, I'm gay. Like, do you see what I'm kind of saying here? So anyways, I just wanted to highlight that scene because it's beautiful. And also to me, it reads as a coming out scene. Okay, so now let's kind of talk about the fan engagement with Stranger Things, because I do find it to be a fascinating intersection with the topic of Will's sexuality in Stranger Things, because fan entitlement, like, let me know what you think, because I feel like fan entitlement has never been more toxic. Like, people like consuming stories and consuming TV shows, especially because you spend a lot of time with them, but like major franchises and major IPs, fans spend a lot of time with them and they get attached to them. Slay me, look at everything behind me, look at my entire YouTube channel. That's me. But I do find it a little bit upsetting when people, they come across, and maybe they don't mean to, but sometimes people really come across as like entitled over the story that's being told to them, over the story that's being presented to them. Like, it's like you're like, I'm picking up a book and I'm reading the book, and if I don't like what happens in the book, I'm not going to write the author and be like, that shouldn't have happened. Here's what should have happened. Like, that sort of entitlement is a very toxic place to be. And also, it's not fair to the Duffer Brothers, because like, they are writing the story with these characters, and obviously they love Will and would, like, in my opinion, never do him wrong. And also clearly they have like queer people on that writing team because they're doing a great job of it with Robin. So like, this idea of like needing it the way that you need it to be is it's not it, besties. It is not it. And also, like, let the Duffer Brothers tell Will's story as they want to tell it. And if you don't like it, that's fine, but you can't accuse them of queerbaiting, because, like, again, by the definition of it, I don't think they are. Anyways, that fan entitlement over like media is a whole other thing. But if you want a rant about that, you let me know, because I'm always down to talk about that. And I feel like it's getting worse. So we should talk about that. But also, I wanted to say too, like, with that, there's also like a pushing of sort of like 2020s like activism and social justice onto media and into stories, which like I do too, girl. Again, look at my YouTube channel. You know, media is always going to have like a place and like ramifications in the world that we currently live in. But I think that specifically with Will Byers, there's a lot of context that's missing, because like, listen, it was like hard enough to come out for me in 2013. It was hard enough for me to do it then. Like, and it's hard enough for me to sort of process my own sexuality as a kid, because I was just like called gay before I knew what it meant. And all I knew was that it was a bad thing. So there was that. So I can't imagine like being in the 80s like that. Will must be feeling that, but times 1,000. And then you also have like other like 80s things like the AIDS crisis, and like being gay meant that you were a bad person and you died, and like you spread disease and you died like that. So that context really does matter. And I'm also like, what gotta say that I'm so happy that so many like gay people that grew up in the 80s find a lot of solace in a character like Will and feel really represented, because I think that's also very, very important, and also a very cool like healing thing for older queer people. So I don't want to take away from that. I want to celebrate that. There's also like the context of Will within the world of Stranger Things, and like that boy fully got kidnapped and spent way too long on the Upside Down and went through like trauma after trauma. He got possessed. He watched everything happen at Starcourt Mall. Like, he's been through so many traumas. And then in season 4, we catch up with him. He had just moved, like brand new situation, misses his friends, misses his friend that he might like more than a friend, and like is kind of like probably feels very indebted to a character like Eleven, who helped save his life, he's watching her get bullied. So he's like probably prioritizing her needs above his own. Like, and on top of that, he's like, what, 15, 16? Like, listen, y'all, there's a lot of context for that I think is overlooked in this argument that I want to highlight, because if I couldn't process my own sexuality in my privileged little bubble of a life, how is this boy supposed to process his at such a young age with everything going on in the world of Stranger Things, and also like in the context of the 80s. Hello everyone, Editing Chase here. I am currently editing the video, and I had a thought to myself about a version of like representation that I think would work really well in the context of Stranger Things right now. And I would be remiss if I didn't include it, so just let me include it really quick. One form of representation that I think would work really well in Stranger Things is allow Will to have a coming out scene, but talk about maybe why that's hard in the 80s, and like really take, I mean, I think that's like a really responsible thing to do, because it kind of like does two things. One is it helps provide that representation that is important in 2020, while also honors the time in which the show takes place. So I think if he could kind of like have maybe a more explicit struggle with his coming out, or have an easy coming out with like Joyce or Jonathan, maybe more outwardly, and then just talk about why it is hard to be out and proud in the year that the events of Stranger Things take place. Does that make sense? I think that would be a great idea. Anyways, back to the video. The last thing that I kind of just like wanted to hit on was, it kind of goes back to this entitlement thing, but the creators of the show and like the actors have talked a lot about it. And I just think it's an impossible task. Like anytime they have to, they had to talk about this with press for season 4, I just felt like they were set up for failure. And to be clear, like I think that from the very beginning, they should have just been like, yes, he's gay. Like, let's move on. Like they should have acknowledged that as like super, super quickly, but I think they didn't want to like spoil it. And I think that they probably don't want to spoil it. Like, again, I'm coming for the assumption that we're going to have more explicit queerness with Will. I don't think they want to spoil it, but I think like the world we live in today, like kind of forces these creators and actors to be like, well, tell us if he is or he isn't, because we have to know if you guys are like going to get canceled or not for like not having representation. I don't know. I know that makes me sound like such a boomer, but I have to say, you guys, like, I don't think that they were like hinting at his sexuality in interviews because they were scared to claim Will's gayness. I think they were hinting at it in interviews because they didn't want to spoil it. Like they don't want to spoil the journey. And I think as fans and as people like interviewing these people, I think that we shouldn't want to spoil it for ourselves. Like ask the question and then move on. But also at the same time, like they should just say it. They should just say it. Like spoil it. It doesn't matter. And also because it is 2022, like they should absolutely just say he's gay from the beginning instead of waiting till the season is over to say he's gay, because then it kind of looks like they're just saying that because like they got like caught under fire for being like for queer baiting. And you know, maybe it is that, and maybe that is our sad reality. But I like to think that like they just didn't want to spoil it. And now they're like, since the season's been out for a little bit, they're like, yes, he is gay. And yes, we can talk about that. Because I don't know. I know that Noah Schnapp did a really beautiful interview in Variety. And I think it also shows that like he and the Duffers have like a really intimate understanding of Will as a character. So again, it kind of goes back to that trusting of their process and trusting of their plan for the character. But anyway, yeah, that one definitely has a gray area. Like they should just claim him as gay from the beginning, but also they don't want to spoil it. And also like we shouldn't feel entitled to that information. Like let that information come up into the story as it comes up into the story by those telling the story. But again, that has a grayer area for sure. Anyways, listen, did this make sense? Was I talking too fast? Did you understand any of it? Did you connect with any of it? Had you thought of any of that before? You guys, doing like more rambly videos is new to me. So we're trying our best, but I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope that like I gave you something to chew on. I would love for you to give me something to chew on in the comments below. Okay. I want to read what you have to say. I want to have conversations about this because I do find it to be an interesting topic, albeit a little bit exhausting. But yeah, I just appreciate you watching. Thank you for watching and taking the time to talk about this with me today and to hear my thoughts on it. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel because I do put out queer content on the regular. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you're having a great day wherever you are, and Gay the Force be with you always.